between Europe and Asia, economic dialogue, humanitarian missions, multi-vector operating and the search for compromises in the world arena. How else does Kazakhstan participate in the development of the modern world? For more details, watch the program Kazakhstan International Vectors. Today you will find out in which areas does Kazakhstan cooperate with Great Britain, what are the interests of Lithuania in the Republic, and what does Kazakhstan have in common with Hungary.
It is believed that the word diplomacy comes from the Greek diploma. This is how in ancient Greece they called double plaques that were issued to envoys as confirmation of their authority in the process of negotiations with the rulers of different states. In the modern sense, this word began to be used from the end of the 16th century, when the German scientist Gottfried Leibniz in 1693 created the Code of Diplomatic Law. Since then, the word began to refer to dealing with international relations. It is generally accepted that the First World War and the following events, such as the declaration by the US President Woodrow Wilson of his 14 points of open diplomacy and economic equality of states, the abolition by Soviet Russia of the so-called enslaving treaties, and the denial of secret diplomacy become a milestone in the issue. An important influence on the development of diplomacy, and hence the foreign policy of states, was provided by the creation of international organizations, the League of Nations and the United Nations.
Today, Kazakhstan is an authoritative, recognized participant of the world community of states. In the short historical period in the early 1990s, Kazakhstan achieved notable successes. Sovereignty of the country was recognized practically by all states and international organizations. A multi-vector foreign policy has been formed, and economic ties have been established both with countries nearby and far abroad.
For the first 6 months of 2017, Kazakhstan's foreign trade grew by 29% compared to the same period of the previous year, while exports increased by 38% and imports by 11%. The top 3 importers of the country include Russia, China and the United States. The trade turnover of the Republic with the countries of the Eurasian Economic Union exceeded $5 billion.
One of the priorities of the global cooperation of the Republic of Kazakhstan is the interaction with international organizations in not only political and economic context, but also in matters of ensuring security. In 2010, Kazakhstan headed the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. For the first time in the history of the OSCE, one of the post-Soviet republics became its chairman. The candidacy of Kazakhstan was unanimously approved by all 56 member countries. Since the beginning of this year, the Republic has been acting as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, where it represents the interests of the entire Central Asian region. Such high attention from the world community proves once again the success of Kazakhstan in foreign policy issues.
During the non-permanent membership in the UN Security Council, Kazakhstan plans to promote the concept of a world free of nuclear weapons, contribute to peace in Afghanistan and the formation of a regional peace zone in Central Asia, promote peaceful and stable development of Africa, promote sustainable development goals of the UN, and much more.
Great importance in the foreign economic strategy of Kazakhstan is attached to further development of cooperation with the countries of the European Union. Experience of integration of the member states of the EU is of particular value for the Republic, which is actively pursuing the creation of integration initiatives and is represented in a number of regional associations: the CIS, Eurasia Sea, EES, SCO. Relations between Kazakhstan and the European Union are now acquiring a stable and long-term character. Kazakhstan is the largest trading partner of the EU in Central Asia and the CIS. In particular, the most dynamically developing ties are in the oil and gas industry.
We're also interested to work with you in agriculture, potentially in healthcare, and we're also looking at prospects here for renewables, given that Kazakhstan has such huge untapped reserves still here of solar power, potentially of wind power and of hydro. So that's very much on the trade side. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs also discussed with your Foreign Ministry prospects for new KazAid, which is your regional development fund, working with our Department for International Development in the future and actually learning from each other and setting up joint projects. And I'd be delighted if we can make that work too.
The United Kingdom is one of the top 10 trade partners of Kazakhstan in terms of commodity turnover, as well as the sixth country largest investor. Over the past 12 years, the inflow of direct investment from the UK to Kazakhstan has exceeded $12 billion, which is almost 5% of the total volume of attracted foreign investment.
The trade turnover between Kazakhstan and the United Kingdom for January-April 2017 exceeded $422.5 million, which exceeds the same indicator of the previous year by more than a quarter.
Since Kazakhstan gained independence, many agreements have been signed that helped establish and consolidate business cooperation between the two countries and helped improve the investment climate. Among them, an agreement on avoidance of double taxation, agreement on investment protection, and interdepartmental documents on the use of airspace can be named.
On the people-to-people links, which I think are actually really important, the British Council, our colleagues here who work on culture and education, have made great steps in getting British universities and Kazakh universities to work more closely together. I think that's really important. It's a great opportunity for people to study overseas and then come back and be future leaders of Kazakhstan. Apart from that, we hope for much wider cooperation in other sectors too. So one example of project finance that we're doing, again announced by a UK minister, so Sir Alan Duncan, when he was here last week, was able to announce that we are giving almost $100,000 to an NGO called Penal Reform International, and they will be using that to train prison officers here to international standards. It's a really important part of President Nazarbayev's reform ambitions, and we're very pleased to be able to help with it.
Development of cooperation between Kazakhstan and Great Britain in the humanitarian sphere is of no small importance. The British Council, which actively participates in the implementation of the Bola Shak program, is of great assistance here. In addition, every year the embassy conducts a selection of scholarships for the educational Chevening program, sponsored by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Great Britain.
We're also working with Almaty Tech Garden. So we signed a memorandum of understanding with them in November 2016. And Almaty Tech Garden is basically a really ambitious plan to create a self-sustaining science and technology complex in Almaty. It's a really exciting project. We're delighted that a British company, Metallisys, will actually set up here later this year. And what they'll actually be doing is manufacturing metallic powder there, which will be used in 3D printing.
Another important foreign partner for Kazakhstan is Lithuania. Diplomatic relations between the republics have been established since 1992. These two countries are united by not only their similar history, but also mutual trade and common economic interests. In fact, Kazakhstan and Lithuania themselves come into contact on the state level and in many international organizations on various projects. This is tourism, healthcare, culture. For these 25 years of independence, Kazakhstan has become a very significant and visible country in the world, and a very strong country. We must admit that Kazakhstan's initiatives sound not only in this region, but in the world, and the name of the country of Kazakhstan is audible. This is very good for the country itself, for its development, naturally to attract investment and everything. Transit and transport cooperation is an important area of Kazakh-Lithuanian cooperation. In this context, great importance is attached to the solution of transit issues between Lithuania and Russia that are promoting the Kaliningrad-Klaipeda project, which also targets Kazakhstan and China. A promising branch of cooperation is agriculture, in particular interaction through the breeding of dairy cattle, the creation of joint ventures in the food industry, the supply of Kazakh grain to European markets. To further develop trade relations between the two countries, a Kazakh-Lithuanian Intergovernmental Commission on Trade and Economic Cooperation has been established. The trade turnover between Lithuania and Kazakhstan, despite the fact that Lithuania is not a big country, the trade turnover is still a significant one. And if speaking precisely about figures, if you look at it, in 2014 the trade turnover between Lithuania and Kazakhstan was almost $1 billion. In 2015 there were already 670 million euros. In 2016, 619 million euros.
619 миллионов евро.
Last year, the countries agreed on cooperation in the field of defense policy, training, logistics and regional security, the areas of mutual interest. The representatives of Lithuania say that in matters of ensuring security, Kazakhstan is the country's only partner in the whole region of Central Asia.
На следующий год делегации ожидается из Министерства.
The next year, the delegation is expected from the Ministry of Defense to Lithuania, to Vilnius, in particular at the expense of signing a plan for cooperation between the countries in the military field. While there, a discussion is expected to happen on the areas that can be of a common ground to both countries, and maybe some priorities interesting for both countries will also be figured out.
Где, может быть, установить какие-то приоритеты, что это интересно для обеих стран.
The two states also cooperate in the field of tourism and education. To the residents of Kazakhstan, Lithuania traditionally offers the Baltic resorts. The local universities offer a quality education by European standards.
Едут ученые из Казахстана в Литву.
There are scientists going from Kazakhstan to Lithuania. There they do their thesis or the scientific research or improve their qualifications in general. We have different universities: Kaunas Medical University, Technological University, Vilnius Gediminas University of Technology. Vilnius University has very good intensive cooperation with your pedagogical university.
И ваш педагогический университет.
The education of young Kazakhstanis, their knowledge of several languages and interest towards other countries indicate positive trends in Kazakhstan. The economic and social breakthrough of the country, its leadership in the Central Asian region, say representatives of foreign embassies and consulates. Kazakhstan is Hungary's only strategic partner in the whole Central Asian region, and accordingly, Hungary is the only strategic partner of Kazakhstan among the 14 states of Eastern Central Europe. Countries cooperate closely, both internationally and bilaterally. Last year, after the economic crisis, after the recession of the previous years, our trade turnover for the first time rose by 16% and reached $188 million. And this year we have fantastic results, because literally for 6 months of this year, the trade turnover has already reached 330 million. That is almost twice as much as in the previous year. The largest Hungarian investor in the Kazakh economy is the oil company MOL. Over the past 10 years, it has invested about $200 million in a new oil field project in Kazakhstan. Another joint project between the two countries is the Hungarian-Kazakhstani Private Equity Fund. Both sides invested in the authorized capital of $20 million. Thus, the starting authorized capital equals to 40 million. But the management company of this fund, it also attracts additional funds from the private sector. This fund started its activity last year, and it is gratifying that the first agreement on financing a particular project has already been signed. And in the next 2 months, we expect to sign 2 more agreements on exact financing. The interest of Hungary is to bring the Hungarian component into these projects, technologies, results of scientific research and other accumulated experience. This will additionally contribute to strengthening bilateral economic relations. Another important achievement in the development of interaction between the two countries is the opening of direct air communication between Astana and Budapest. This will further strengthen the friendly ties because it will save time, for example, for businessmen, and will have a positive impact on the development of tourism, experts say. And I even feel myself that for the first 3 months, the flow of Hungarian visitors to Kazakhstan has grown. These are ordinary tourists who just wanted to see the new capital of Kazakhstan, but these are also businessmen. The main thing is that there is an air communication, and I'm sure this will contribute to the further growth of our economic cooperation, as evidenced in fact by the statistics. President Nazarbayev has repeatedly called Germany the locomotive for the development of Kazakhstan's relations with Europe. Cooperation between the two countries lasts a quarter century and is mutually beneficial. Evidence of this is the indicators of mutual trade turnover, which last year amounted to 4.5 billion euros, and for 5 months of this year exceeded 2 billion. Germany is a reliable trading partner and a stable investor. More than 90% of German investments go to the non-primary sector of Kazakhstan's economy, that is, to the processing industry, chemical industry, production of building materials, engineering and agriculture.
Only in the past 3 years, the number of economic entities with the participation of German capital registered in Kazakhstan has increased from 1,200 to 1,450 units. These are joint ventures, representations of German companies and banks.
In addition, both countries actively cooperate in the field of transport logistics. Thus, the transportation of goods by container trains from China to Europe through the territory of Kazakhstan has increased almost 5 times in the last 2 years. A number of dialogue platforms and institutions between the states successfully operate in Kazakhstan. Among them, the Intergovernmental Working Group on Trade and Economic Cooperation, the Kazakhstan-German Business Council, the representation of the German economy in Central Asia and others. In addition, an Intergovernmental Commission on Issues of Citizens of Kazakhstan of German nationality has been set up. Countries also cooperate in education and science and business development. By the way, an example of such cooperation is the work of one of the German hotel specialists in Almaty.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Grand Hotel Tian Shan. My name is Jens Weber. I am the general manager of the Tian Shan Hotel Group, and this is one of our hotels, and I would like to introduce you to our hotel.
Jens Weber began his career many years ago in his homeland Germany. Thanks to his high professionalism, he helped to develop the hotel business in many countries, and now he's here in Kazakhstan.
I worked and lived in different countries as England, America, France, Germany, of course, Russia, Thailand, Malaysia, and now Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a very young country, it's a developing country, and that's why I've been invited by owners of the company to implement international standards for our hotels. We have 3 hotels here in Almaty, and the international standard is needed because we're dealing with international guests, and guests expecting more and more of professionality of the staff, and that's why we have an ongoing training for our staff members in theoretical trainings, practical trainings, also language trainings, and this is very important.
Employees are the visiting card of any hotel. Therefore, here professional skills are not the only thing to be developed. There is a football team of this hotel group which has repeatedly won friendly competitions among other hotels' staff.
The purpose of this competition is to improve the how can I say, the friendship between the hotels. Of course, we are all in competition, but we are also, at the same time, friends, and we have a good relationship, and I'm happy and proud about that.
Cooperation is possible and necessary, because only in the knowledge of each other there will be a common sense of security. This is what the foreign partners of Kazakhstan say about the friendship and alliance with the Republic in economic, political and social spheres.
I think it's really important to have a Central Asian country on the UN Security Council, and I'm really pleased that Kazakhstan was the first to achieve that.
Since gaining its independence, Kazakhstan has established a multi-vector foreign policy that helped strengthen sovereignty and statehood and provided the country's entry into the system of international and world economic relations. Over the years, the state has become a full member of the international community, and its initiatives have almost always received international support and were put into practice. It has established stable and predictable relations with all neighboring countries. There is an international image of Kazakhstan as a serious and reliable partner.